You're listening to episode 140 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Dr. Valdene Brown.
So we're giving information back to the brain about what it did in the time frame that is most useful for it to decide what to do. It's like when you learn to walk and the body discovered itself its own internal feedback mechanisms to find its unique way of walking at that age, at that weight, with that much history in your environment, etc.
Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hant, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential. So here's a little bit about our guest today, Dr. Valdene Brown. He's had a long and varied history in the field of mental health before even pursuing his Ph.D. in psychology. For over 25 years, he taught continuing medical education courses across a wide range of clinical topics, including rapid transformation of borderline phenomenology, dual diagnosed clients, dynamics of family therapy, working with angry adolescents. For many years, he has been featured as a keynote speaker at numerous national and international conferences in the fields of neurofeedback, child psychology, total quality management, and others. He developed and published the 5-phase model of neurofeedback, which was the first and still the only approach to clinical neurofeedback that integrated multiple protocols into a single comprehensive approach that could be used regardless of clinical presentation. With his background in mathematics, physics, computer programming, designing and implementing automated outcome studies, as well as multimodal assessment, he was able to co-develop with his wife, Dr. Sue Brown, the Period 3 approach to neurofeedback. Their approach was fundamental to their new and revolutionary neurofeedback system, later to become NeuroOptimal, showcasing their vision of dynamic neurofeedback. Over time, this was refined, always with an overarching commitment to safe, effective, and effortless personal transformation that anyone can use. Now retired from actively programming, Dr. Brown directs the ongoing architectural development of NeuroOptimal, as well as being intimately involved in ongoing research and development at Zengar. So here's our guest today, Dr. Val Brown. Everyone in Lifestyle Locker Radio, we have Val today from NeuroOptimal. I was not saying that so clearly before, but Val, welcome. I'm very excited to have you today. This is going to be an awesome show for many reasons. And the first is I cannot wait to share you and your system with the world, with our audience. So thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you, Josh. It's so much fun doing these kind of podcasts and webinars and stuff. I used to do a lot of the teaching for our system and a lot of presenting and all. And so I really enjoy it. It's one of the things that I definitely enjoy the most about what it's taken to get to this place. Some of the other stuff, life is life, right?
Yeah.
But this stuff I love. And I love, telling the story and giving people that exposure and see where it goes.
Yeah. So before we get into NeuroOptimal now, I want you to take people on a little bit of a journey because we're going to be talking about neurofeedback, which some people may have never even heard the word.
Right.
But let's go back. Okay. So this is like, we're dealing with computers and technology now, but was that something you were always into? Because this is like a healthcare thing. There's a lot of there's a wide space here.
Yeah. Well, there are a number of threads. All right.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I grew up in Washington, D.C. And my best friend was Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Okay.
We lived on the same block. All the stuff, checking things out, doing science experiments, figuring things out. That was the whole crew that I was in. That was the cohort. We just did that stuff. And back then it was, Jack Kennedy's day and the new frontier. And so science was everything. And it didn't matter how old you were. If you could keep up with the discussion, people would go with it. So, friends of mine ran Goddard Space Flight Center, their parents.
Okay.
And others were DOD and, whatever. And so early on, there was no limit. Forget the sky's the limit. It's all kinds of interesting stuff. So what got me into neurofeedback originally and this whole idea was actually in high school. I had just finished reading The Project for Scientific Psychology by Sigmund Freud. It was unpublished at his death. But it's where the other title is Psychology for Neurologists. And he tries to make the psychic process into an energetic transformation process.
Okay.
But of course, the engine back in his day was the steam engine, which is the whole reason that everything got translated in terms of drives. Yeah. Because it's the driver, right, that turns the wheels. Yeah. So I read that, and by that time, I'd already studied on my own, if you will, not as part of school, the mathematics of quantum mechanics and a few other things. And so I said,
that's pretty wild.
I know. Yeah, it is. As I tell the story, and it's like, what? But it was fun because I said, wait a minute, energetic transformation, holy cow, equals MC squared. This is just energetic transformation. So how do we do it? Well, information is what it's all about. That's energy. It takes, cool. And then I started thinking about what kind of mathematics would you need to plot the energetic transforms of consciousness. So, and it just came to me, this vision that there could be this self-correcting apparatus that would read the electrical activity and then feed it back to that brain in ways that would just help it know what it was doing. Because we frequently walk around in a fog and we just don't have a clue until after we've done what we do. It's like going to school and you get the midterm, but that doesn't help you for the first week or two or three of the course, right? So the more timely the feedback can be, the better. So as I thought about it, it was like, okay, this is going to be like decades away. There aren't many computers on the planet that can even begin these calculations, let alone real time. So I kind of put the idea on the shelf. And then I went to Georgetown undergraduate. And I happened to go to a lecture done by Carl Pribram, the neuroscientist, actually a neurosurgeon. And he had just come out not long before that with the holonomic model of the brain. Okay. And he was working with Merton Gill on a new translation and interpretation of The Project for Scientific Psychology.
Okay, pretty neat.
So as he's talking about this, I'm asking him these questions, about the mathematics, all of that. Anyway, to fast forward, 25 years later, I'm presenting at an international conference on what I'm doing for neurofeedback and where I'm going. He comes up to me during a break and he says, this is really exciting. What you've presented sums up the last 25 years of my life. And I said, well, thank you very much. That's a real honor. And then I chuckled a bit and I said, I'll bet you don't remember, but I heard you back at Georgetown. And he looked at me and he had this little head tilt.
Like a dog, right?
Yeah, it was funny. Just that little head tilt. And he went, were you that long-haired kid in the back who asked me all the mathematics questions? I laughed. I said, yeah, that was me. And for the next several years, he and I presented together. So it really was a whole series of very odd experiences, odd meaning unusual.
Yeah.
So I came back into the field of neurofeedback as a psychologist and a neuropsychologist, as well as programming computers, as well as knowing the mathematics and the science and the digital signal processing. And I knew all of it, at least enough. And that's also highly unusual.
Yeah. So what was your schooling, your initial schooling actually in?
It's funny you asked that because one of the colleagues in the field at one point there was a bunch of us talking, and he turned to me and he went, "Wait a minute, you're not an engineer?" I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "I could have sworn you were an engineer. You talk just like an engineer." And I said, "That's when I'm talking to you because that's your language.
Yeah.
It's like I speak engineering.
Yeah.
My academic background was really philosophy and psychology,
Okay.
and my Ph.D. is in psychology, but it's in existential phenomenological psychology from Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. It's all about the structure of experience.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, so it dovetails very nicely because my approach to neurofeedback is all about elucidating the structure of actual neurofeedback training. Like, what is it that actually happens during a session
Okay.
that is judged as being useful by both people, the client and the trainer, if there is one, versus those where the two don't agree or they both agree that it wasn't useful.
Okay.
What actually differentiates them? It's kind of like, okay, what do ultra distance runners do that differentiates them from those who don't do that stuff?
Okay, fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was very clear there was a definite structure, and that could be captured in the mathematics of, joint time frequency analysis and nonlinear dynamical mathematics, which sounds like a bunch of jargon.
Yeah, it sounds smart.
Yeah, it sounds smart, yeah. Well, there's another funny story that I have to tell them to kind of put it in context. Way back in the beginning, I was pitching this idea to an engineering group who was going to do a piece of the initial release of the software for us. So I did this whole thing up on the chalkboard, showing all the different modules and how they related and what they were doing. And at the end of it, one of the guys turned and said, "Now you're a doctor, right?" And I went, "Well, I'm a psychologist. I'm not a medical doctor, but I do have a doctorate in psychology." He said, "Okay, I've never heard a doctor talk like you. And where did you get that mathematics?" I was the lead engineer for the U.S. Navy in the towed sonar array for the USS Seawolf, and that's classified. And I laughed and I said, I hate to burst your bubble, but the origins of this stuff was published in the 20s. It's all out the public domain. It's the same basic mathematics, just tuned differently, that was behind the Manhattan Project.
That's funny.
So fast forward, Sue and I move out here to Victoria, and we decide we're going to change the website, who's going to host it and all that stuff. So we're pitching to this local group that does websites, and I'm explaining what the thing is. And when I finish that, from the back of the room, one guy goes, "You're that guy." And I went, "That guy? What do you?" He says, "Well, I was on the Canadian Forces liaison to the U.S. sonar array for the Seawolf, and the lead engineer there told me, hey, there's this guy who knows all this stuff, right?" And I went, okay, yeah, I'm that guy. It's true.
Wow, small world, really.
So fast forward again several years, and I'm playing golf over at Victoria Golf Club, where I belong. And I'm paired up with a really distinguished gentleman who's a retired admiral of the fleet for Canadian Forces. I know who he is, and he's telling me all kinds of stories, and finally he turns to me and he says, "Well, what do you do?" And so I start telling him, and he stops, and he turns to me and goes, "You're that guy, aren't you?" I said, "Well, I was the commanding officer for the Canadian Forces liaison." "You're that guy." I went, "Yes, I am. It's true. I'm that guy."
I'm going to draw this mathematical equation on the green for you real quick. Type of thing.
Really. It is funny. I think in terms of mathematics quite a bit, but I visualize it.
Okay.
So it's almost geometric in a sense.
Yeah.
And so the real metaphor that I have is that it's like we are guiding some kind of like probe, the probe out to Pluto or beyond. And we have to track that through force space and make the corrections at the right time to just nudge the spaceship towards where it's supposed to go, where it's supposed to intersect, Pluto coming up like this or whatever it is. And it is basically very similar mathematics.
Wow. So let's rewind a little bit, because
Sure, absolutely.
No, because I think this is important. People are getting an idea of what's going on in between your ears and or in between your earbuds right now, right? Those 6 inches in between your earbuds.
Right.
So when we talk about neurofeedback, what is the difference? This is for me, and I think for the audience. What is the difference between biofeedback and neurofeedback?
Yeah, now it depends whose definition you take, but biofeedback, most people see that as sort of the most generic term. Okay, because what you're doing is you're tracking some biological signal.
Okay.
Generally, that would be something that you could measure with sensors that can be fitted into a digital domain, a computer. So things like the temperature of your skin, respiratory rate, how much sweat production there is, et cetera.
Okay. What about I'm wearing a Garmin watch? Is that considered biofeedback?
Yeah, it is in a sense, but it's really
tracking heart rate and heart rate variability and things like that.
Yes, and the thing about like heart rate variability through the Garmin or whatever, the time delay in that is much, much longer because it has to calculate stuff and then it gives you a display and it says, oh, what you were doing was, which is useful, right? But to the extreme, it's sort of like that midterm. It'd be nice if you got information on
right now.
Right now, yes.
Yeah.
So what neurofeedback does is it's tracking the electrical activity of the brain as it appears on the surface, on the scalp, basically. And then is feeding that back to the person who's connected in real time. So much, much more rapidly than, say, the heart rate variability.
Okay. So it's like an instant response versus a
yes.
I'm going to check it after my run, or I'm going to check it when I wake up.
Exactly.
Type of thing.
Yes. And the metaphor that I like to use is our approach is very similar to the little rumble strips on the highway. They tell you where you are. Now, they're not telling you get back on the road. You may be wanting to go off to turn off in one of the rest areas, right? It's just there on the shoulder. But it's giving you information about where you are, and then the brain, you decide what to do.
Okay.
Our system gives that kind of real-time information about here's what you're doing. Is this what you want to be doing?
Very cool.
Because if you cascade down into a response that upsets you, a memory, there'll be a certain kind of process that occurs.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Usually by the time you feel it, you're already over the cliff. The felt sense is the last part almost. Really, the last part is you thinking, oh my goodness, I've fallen off the cliff.
Yeah.
But then you're almost about to hit the ground, right?
Yeah.
So we're giving information back to the brain about what it did in the time frame that is most useful for it to decide what to do. It's like when you learn to walk or you learn to talk, whoever was with you, your caretakers, didn't say, okay, move your foot 6 inches forward. That's now this foot. No, you played with it. And the body discovered itself, its own internal feedback mechanisms to find its unique way of walking at that age, at that weight, with that much history in your environment, etc. So the neurofeedback for us, every session is unique.
Okay.
You are. And you're unique moment to moment. It doesn't help us to say, oh, on average, this is what you look like. Well, who wants average?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're in a committed relationship. Do you ever go up to your partner and say, I'd like an average kiss right now?
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah. So I know we're talking about NeuroOptimal. Are there different
Sure.
types of neurofeedback?
Oh yeah, there are all kinds. We are we've trademarked the term dynamical neurofeedback
Okay.
because we're the only system that operates the way that we do,
Hmm.
which is totally individualizing moment to moment. Virtually every other system does some aspect of saying, well, here's what you should be doing. This is the brain pattern that we believe you should be using if
Okay.
you're trying to focus in class. Now, the challenge with that is very similar to the challenge with what we call peripheral feedback or biofeedback more
Mhm.
generally. You have to learn specific skills to then presumably trigger these states. Oh, I'm in class now. Yeah, let me do the focus thing. Now I'm exaggerating a bit,
Yeah, but it
but
makes sense.
that's the orientation. Our orientation is very different. If I throw you a baseball, and even if it's a different weight than you used to, and I say, go ahead and throw that 20 feet away, you just pick it up and underhand, you toss the thing so it goes, and you don't sit there and calculate and say, okay, let's see, I want to throw it 20 feet. What's the wind direction?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
right?
Go. Yeah.
So we're giving feedback microsecond to microsecond to the central nervous system, just like it does itself.
Mm.
The other systems can overshoot a desired state because it's intrinsic to positive feedback loops. Like if you have the microphone too close to the speakers,
Yes, of course. Yeah, that
right?
nice, wonderful sound. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we rely on the negative feedback loops because the psychophysiology is essentially self-regulating and returns to a homeodynamic range. Now, your homeodynamic range is going to be very different from mine
Hmm.
because you're an ultra runner. If somehow I tried to match your psychophysiology, boy, that's a long haul.
It's
You
gonna
know?
be totally different.
Totally different, yeah. So the other systems basically do a version of, oh, you want to focus? Well, you ought to do this. So I want you to try right now, get the line higher or make more tones or something like
Okay,
that.
it's kind of like trying to push you into something that you may not even be.
Exactly. And your way of focusing is going to be your way of focusing.
Mm.
And now it may be very similar to a lot of other people, but it's not because that's how you got there. It's not that you learned this average.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that we don't have typical training goals like others do. We don't say, oh, well, you ought to increase your alpha X amount if you really want to meditate well, or et cetera, et cetera. It's almost the opposite. It's each session is unique because each moment of your life is unique. And it's all about being in the present instead of future placing yourself and being anxious. Oh my
Okay.
God, this is coming up. Or looking over your shoulder all the time saying, oh God, I had I had those terrible experiences. That's the way my life is
So this one help the
right now.
NeuroOptimal teaches present time consciousness. Like,
Exactly.
is that
Yeah.
I
And
love that term.
that's the core of all consciousness
Okay.
because it's the only one that is.
Mm. Yeah.
Past
Now.
was, yeah.
Yeah. Future isn't here yet.
Isn't here. That's
Yeah.
right. So we also talk about helping the central nervous system return to the present,
Yeah.
just like with the rumble strip.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, and you've heard me say this many, many times with many, many different guests, we talk about the central nervous system is there's no, there's no understanding in any book or scientific journal or anything that says it's not the center of everything, because it's called central nervous system because
Right.
it's the master system that we can actually look at. Right.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So you get to play with brains, if you will, right? and help keep them present. I mean, I can imagine if I can't wait to have my first experience. And we were talking about this before the show. I can't wait to go and have my first experience with one of the devices. And, if people are using this, and I watch testimonials already and all, I'm blown away. I think, wow, this is really neat. As an athlete, as someone that takes care of someone's health and their nervous system, like this is a great tool that can be added to any human being's life. Anyone at least has a brain, I think we can benefit, right?
Yes, exactly. I oftentimes make the joke that anyone with the brain, of course, that may leave out certain politicians and other people, but anyway, yes, it is true. That's another difference. We've been determined by the FDA to be a general wellness product.
Oh, we're cool.
Which means anybody can buy it, anybody can use it, and I've wanted to make it as safe and clear and simple as, say, using a search engine on your iPad or any other tablet device. And I think we've done that.
Yeah, that's really, so is there two questions? One, are there any side effects or any things that can go wrong? I mean, I can imagine with some of the other systems where you're trying to push a brain somewhere, there could be some kind of adverse effect. I don't know how severe, but it could be probably something.
Yes.
Or whatever it may be, or even feel
uncomfortable, whatever.
All sorts of different things. But being that you're not trying to push someone to a different place, are there any side effects?
It's interesting to bring up side effect, because the idea of a side effect basically is, well, if you can push it or pull it to a good place, then you can push it or pull it to a bad place. So you better really know what you're doing.
Okay.
My perception, my perspective is that each central nervous system knows what's best for it at each moment when it has the information. Most of the time, that information comes a little too late in life.
Like we said before, yeah.
Yeah, life gives you the test first and the lesson after, right? Which can be useful, but it can also be very limiting, because the central nervous system is wonderfully designed to do two things. One is detect difference, and the other is to minimize discomfort. It's not to make you feel good, it's to make you feel less bad.
Yeah.
So, folks who get into addictive processes, they get there because it works. Now think about that. It works in that moment. They know what's going to happen in that moment. And at that point, there's no conception of tomorrow. Right? Now, I'm not saying, hey, everybody should be addicted. I'm just saying that if you give people information sooner in the process, then the choice becomes different.
Yeah.
And I used to use the example about, what's easier to do, eat the chocolate or not eat it? And everybody would say, oh my God, it's so tough to not eat it. I mean, it's so much easier to eat it. I said, well, whoa, hold on a second. What do you have to do to eat the chocolate? Well, you have to go to a store, or somebody has to give it to you.
Yeah.
You have to take it off the shelf. You have to unwrap it. You have to put it into your mouth. What do you have to do to not eat it? Skip any one of those steps. It's less.
Yeah.
But we have this belief because we know the outcome of eating the chocolate in that moment. And it makes us feel less discomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Take is feeling good. But,
yeah. And it's where we're using our past emotions to.
Exactly. Which means you're only going to be doing as good as you've done up till now, if that's how you do it.
Yeah, you're living in the past.
Yes, living in the past. Exactly.
Huh.
So the another difference for us is that our system, the feedback events, are micro interruptions in sound and vision. So you can use whatever music you want. The interrupts get embedded as the session is going along, because the system just responds. It doesn't care what the music is.
Okay.
So you can watch movies like DVDs or that kind of thing. And the micro interrupts will happen through the course of that as well. it doesn't matter. And so a lot of our trainers who work with young children, every child just about has a favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
So they bring that movie in, put it on the DVD player, and they get to watch whatever the movie is, Shrek or whatever, have a good time, and the interrupts are there and the training occurs.
Yeah. So you said it's an audio interruption, right?
Audio interruption, yes.
Also
Sounds like static or the little crackle that you used to get on vinyl.
Okay. Yeah. But you said, did you also say visual or no?
Mm-hmm.
So they're wearing, you're wearing a set of type of glasses or?
No, the monitor out in front of you. So a typical setup is a computer system with an external monitor, which could be your home theater system.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're just listening to music, if you're not watching a movie or that kind of content, then we have a visualization program that we have a special version of that came from Sound Spectrum. Mm-hmm. And really wonderful people there that I've known for a number of years. And it's a gorgeous fractal random animation kind of visualization. Mm-hmm. Think like a Windows,
screensaver type thing.
Screensaver, or the Windows media player kind of imaging. Only this one is a lot more nuanced and gorgeous. And the interrupts will induce a little change in that visualization.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. And it's just enough, same thing with the audio, just enough that the central nervous system kind of goes, oh, okay. Thanks for the info. Yeah, it's like you're walking in the woods and you hear that little snap of the twig.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Okay. So when people are first trying or first having their first session, do people notice it more? I'm just asking, because I don't always, if I'm running, I don't always listen to music. So I like nature a lot of times, but sometimes if I'm running on the street, I'll throw an earbud in just as a distraction from
whatever else is going on
and everything. So I can just keep my focus on the road.
Yeah.
Like talk about distractions, right? So do people get distracted at all? Like if they're using it their first time?
Well, you have to realize that even what you're calling the experience of distraction will invoke the rumble strips.
Okay, fair enough.
Right? The rumble strips don't care if you're distracted as the driver or you're not. They don't go, oh, he's distracted. Well, shh, be quiet. Don't shake the car. Right?
Okay, yeah.
Same thing with the interrupts. So, but you also don't have to listen to them, because that, again, is another orientation. That's kind of like, I'm looking for things to go wrong. Well, you're going to find them then.
Yeah. I've been called by a difference processor. I'm constantly, and it's just, I don't know where I got it from. It's just my nature. Like, I guess I've been told I got to start looking for the good, but I'll find like the little things that I make tweaks, and that's why I'm asking. My personal experience that I'm waiting to have here with NeuroOptimal. So,
well, and you may not notice it during a session, and I would say don't look for it.
Yeah,
because then you might experience it, and you'll experience it. A lot of people experience the transformations as almost an afterthought.
Okay.
Many of our trainers report that someone will come in after however many sessions go, I'm not noticing anything, but then their spouse is there or some other significant other is like, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. Keep going. And after a while, people start to notice, because a lot of times someone comes in with a focal issue, a thing that they want to change. And if that doesn't change in the ways that they think it should, they can ignore everything else frequently, which I always find fascinating. It's like, well, what else? Because, we have this belief that change is hard. That's a really interesting belief to have, because change is the basis of reality.
Yep.
right? Try to keep everything the same. And if you think that's easy, go talk to Cher.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes an awful lot of work to keep
Yeah.
things the same. So, going back to the energy idea,
Yeah.
NeuroOptimal is tracking the energy flow, if you want to think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's saying, man, you're working really hard right now. Is that what you want to do? Now, it never says that in words, but it's giving you the rumble strips because, man, you're right there, just right at that, and then it will calibrate over to that and give you a safer place to be to optimally start to drift to where your brain really wants to be moment to moment.
Yeah. So are there sessions, are they timed? Is there like, it's a 5-minute session or just based on the song, or is it an hour? What does a session tend to be like?
We have what we call a regular or default session, which is about 33 minutes of actual training time. And one of the reasons we came up with that, just historical footnote, Sue and I were active psychologists at the time. And, a psychologist's hour is 50 minutes. It's like a baker's dozen, but the other way around.
Yeah.
Like a baker's dozen is 11, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason the hour is 50 minutes for a lot of people, psychologists, is because you then write notes, you then do the
of course,
whatever. So we came up with 33 minutes was just about right to have a client come in, talk a little bit about, what had happened since the last time, whatever they wanted to let you know, do the hookup, start the training, 33 minutes later, come back in, undo the hookup, do a little bit of cleanup if you need to, whatever, and then, how was that? Okay, next time, and then make the next appointment.
Okay.
So that's how come. And we found that longer isn't better.
Okay.
Shorter may not be worse.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to think of it as better or worse.
Yeah.
The software limits you to doing, the shortest session would be 16 minutes.
Okay.
And the longest is 44.
Okay.
And that's just the way it's set up. And I would say the basic rule is when in doubt, default it out. There's almost never a reason to not use regular unless somebody comes late and you're pressed for time.
Okay.
Or if, you're demoing at a conference or right.
And so, you mentioned kids using it, so there really is no, obviously there's got to be some age limit, but you can have kids that are no age limit, really. Yeah.
Babes, no age limit. Babes in arms, in fact, that is very useful even for somewhat older children who are, it's a new thing, and what are you doing to me? And so a lot of our trainers who work with children and their families will give the family a set of old sensors and have them practice, have the child practice putting on their favorite teddy bear or whatever. So that it becomes just like, yeah, okay, that's fine, that's cool. It is very interesting because our basic approach is that it ought to be as inviting and comfortable and safe as going online to search for something, or going to Facebook to see the latest stuff that's relevant to you, or chatting with your friend.
Yeah.
It really should be simple, accessible, easy. Anybody can run it anytime on anybody, including yourself.
Yeah, and it's very different than a meditation, but you don't have to be sitting like in the dark with your eyes closed and like
exactly.
You can be have your eyes open. You can be fully with it, and
that's right.
Dive right
Absolutely. In. Yeah.
Interesting. And so I know we spoke about golf before, and your golf game. The one question before we get into that was, who benefits really the most? Is there like a wheelhouse for it, or is it really? I was joking around before saying everybody with a brain has the potential.
It takes you from where you are to where you can be more easily flowing. So it just kind of helps remind you of all that intrinsic healthy chaos inside.
Okay.
Nietzsche's thing was, you have to have a chaos in your heart to give birth to, it's like, yeah, it's the same thing. There is this chaos inside of us, which sounds like, oh my God, it's chaos. No, it's creative chaos. It's the possibilities.
Mm.
So it's, if you're so certain of what's going to happen, you miss all the possibilities.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So let's dive into your golf experience, being that you're an avid user, right?
Yes.
Of NeuroOptimal.
Of NeuroOptimal, yes.
Right.
It's yeah. I hadn't played golf ever in my life. I don't count like, putt golf, mini golf kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm not a golfer, so you could talk circles around me.
Well, I had never played golf, and something like a little over 10 years ago, we did a kind of a marketing outreach experience where we wanted to sort of market to the golfing community. And that was prompted by a business consultant we had who said, well, let's just try this. Let's see what happens. And so as we did that, and we had a packaged version, NeuroOptimal for golf kind of thing, I turned to my wife, Sue, who's my partner and co-founder and co-developer of NeuroOptimal. And I said, if we're going to go out into this community, it'd be really good if we knew a little bit about it, like the game. So she and I started taking lessons. I was 53 when I took my first lesson. Now, Sue since kind of stopped because she was experiencing, various limitations time-wise, but also in terms of, her body. It was hurting a bit. And so it just wasn't enough fun for her to do.
Okay.
But I kept going. And if I'm not mistaken, within about 3 years, I got down to a 3 handicap. And the reason I could do that is because I was already living in that space of the present focus and not going to, oh God, this sucks, or oh, how did I do that to myself? In fact, it's funny. I remember playing golf with this one guy, and he was really getting annoyed with himself, and threw the club when he, missed ball. And by that time, I was having trouble with my one knee and also my shoulders. So I was getting unpredictable because my body would just, like in the middle of the downswing, it would go, nope, not going to do it now,
Not now.
And every time I would have one of those mishits, I'd just laugh. And the other guy looked at me and he said, why are you laughing? And I said, well, because it's funny. He says, well, I'd be really pissed off, if I kept doing that. And I said, how's that working for you? Is that making it better? If it is, okay, I'll be pissed off. But as far as I could tell, it ain't working.
Yeah.
It's funny now. It's going to be, you've ever had one of those experiences where you say, in 10 years, we'll be laughing about this?
Yeah.
Well, then might as well start now. Why wait 10 years?
True. I like that. Yeah.
So I have really bad shoulders now. I need to get shoulder surgery. I'm much more unpredictable, but that's okay too, because I did all the competitive stuff I ever really wanted to do when I was a lot younger. I just love being out on the course. And, it's funny because Victoria Golf Club is the oldest club in Canada that is on the same land where it was originally founded.
Oh,
and
cool.
It was founded in 1893. So we'll get folks up from, say, Pebble Beach, and they'll go, oh wow, this is like Pebble Beach to the north. And I'll laugh and say, no man, you have it backwards. We were here first.
Yeah.
You're like Victoria of the South, okay?
Yeah.
So
true.
It for me, it is all about that fun. So I'll go out first thing in the morning. I have an arrangement that I can go by myself ahead of the first tee time. And everybody knows me, and I don't interfere with the grounds crew people. And I just love being out there at that time of day. And I no longer care how well I play because,
You're having fun.
Yeah, I'm having fun. Yeah. And as the musical used to say in the 60s, your arms are too short to box with God.
Yeah.
So, you know, mine are even shorter, if you will, now.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah. But as far as, for athletes, I mean, going from, a 3 handicap sounds really good.
yes,
Right.
actually it is. It's quite good. Yes.
Yeah. And that's in a 3-year time period. And you look at athletes that like we were talking about my brother-in-law that's on the PGA Tour. He
Right.
didn't just like pick up golf the year before and say, I'm gonna
No.
do this. It took him time. I mean, he was a hockey player, he's Canadian, and then he
Sure.
ended up switching
Yeah.
over. He told the story on the podcast, but he ended up getting into golf and
Mm-hmm.
made the PGA.
Yeah.
How would this, like, if we were to say, hey, listen to my brother-in-law, Ben, we're going to hook you up to NeuroOptimal. Is there a way that we, like, is there a system as far as, we should do this once a week, we should do something like this for performance based, or is it?
No, it isn't that way.
Okay.
That would be turning it into effectively a treatment.
The other way, the other one we were talking about.
What you were just talking about, yeah, as opposed to training.
Okay.
I like if I were talking to him, I might say, okay, how many putts per round do you average? What's your typical? How much time do you put into working on putting? What do you think would happen if we could get your, typical round down to say 23 putts instead of like 28? All right, five strokes. Where do you want to put the effort?
Yeah.
It's and NeuroOptimal is going to help what's inside to just manifest. It helps you refine your intrinsic resilience and flexibility. And that is what it's all about. It's funny, I think the video is still up on the website of describing that process for me. And although I think it was a 5 or something at the time, I've forgotten now. And I was at this course where we were giving one of our conferences, and the guys were filming me for this thing. So I hit this putt on the practice green. It was like 25 foot or whatever. And as I'm watching it, the camera crew and the director are like right below the hole, and the ball's going, and the director's going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," and hold down. And he turns to the camera and says, "I hope you got that." And I think it's the ending shot now. But it's funny because our COO, Samantha, who's just a wonderful woman, heard this story, heard what happened. And at the conference, she said, "Val just got a hole in one." And it's like, yeah. No, I didn't get a hole in one.
From the putting green.
Well, but it was one stroke and it went in. It's like, yeah, I know. Okay, fine. But for me, it's all about returning to what's there now.
Yeah.
A lot of us are trying in various ways to chase the dragon, and we choose a state of what we think is a state, and we want to try to be there all the time. Well, that's not how that's not how psychophysiology works. It's an illusion to talk about a singular state. Because so much is going on and there's so many internal feedback mechanisms. And fortunately, that's the case. Heart rate variability works with, 3 control processes, if you will, that are involved with the heart. It's a good thing we have all 3 and not just one, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, well, this one is the best. No, it depends what you're doing. Depends the context, depends on the situation. Depends what you experience your options as. So, we've had Olympic rowers make use of the product. We've had CrossFit champions, that kind of thing, make use of it. We have several golfers who have built their teaching careers around it, post their time on the LPGA or whatever. It's really been used around the world for everything from peak, what most people call peak performance. I prefer to call it optimal flow and function.
Yeah.
Because peak sounds like you're right there at the pinnacle of the mountaintop and you're ready to fall off.
Okay.
That's not a real good way to think about it if you
No.
want to. Yeah. So it's optimal flow and function is how I think of it. And
Yeah.
that's really the essence of what NeuroOptimal is. And it depends where you're coming from moment to moment.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because you're working with the central nervous system, and I know I've seen on the website and some of the testimonials, people with depression and anxiety, all of these different, we'll say, mind conditions having these very profound changes. Um, and my next question is, being that the central nervous system controls everything, are you seeing differences in people that may even have chronic health conditions?
It's interesting to talk about um, the transformations that occur because we are a general wellness product.
Yeah.
So one thing that we don't do is make anything that can be understood as a medical claim
Okay.
because we just don't know how anybody's individual journey
Oh,
is
of
going to
course. No, I'm
happen.
not saying
Right?
like, we treat
No, no, no. I
XYZ.
understand. I understand. On the other hand, if you read the shared experiences from a number of our uh, the number of the clients from our trainers or our trainers themselves, they will tell you stories of what they experienced, and a lot of them are very interesting.
Yeah.
The original article that I wrote on neurofeedback way back in the mid '90s, I was reporting very different system at the time. Technology was very different. Um, I was writing about a specific case involving a client with permission and all who was a Lyme sufferer,
Mm.
and the profound shifts that that person went through. Uh, One of our very prominent, well-known trainers had a very similar story of using our system after a long history of other systems and finally being able to get through her Lyme disease.
Wow. So, yeah, that's great. I mean, that's
So,
what I'm thinking. There's a lot of really amazing things that can happen in people's lives, even though it's, I see it as a chiropractor because we're working directly with the central nervous system, that I'm not, I have people, one of the most common things that people have low back injuries come in for, most
yes,
of them have a digestive issue or a prostate issue or something like that,
yes,
reproductive issue. And through care, like, months into care, to go, does it make sense that my digestion is better? I go, yes. Remember we looked at that chart, and at the brain goes to the nerves and goes to this. And it's not that I'm adjusting their digestive tract
right,
or getting someone pregnant, right?
right, right.
But their body's functioning better. When we talk about optimal function. So with your product, I'm seeing
It,
like like light bulbs are going off in my head now, going,
I hear you.
oh,
Yeah.
what are the potential if we have a chiropractic adjustment now and also this going on, that's like supercharging.
Well, the way I think about it's very interesting the way words define our realities at times.
Uh-huh.
The most healthcare practitioners, particularly mental health practitioners, are looking for disorders.
Mm,
And I say, the thing about that word is it's singularly inappropriate because they aren't disorders. They're hyperorderings. They're hyperorderliness. You know, somebody presents, and I'm speaking now out of the different context as a psychologist, just putting that cap on for a moment. You say, oh, well, George is depressed. Well, how do you know? Well, because this is what he does, and he does this all the time. Got it. So how will you know potentially he's getting better? Well, there'll be less of that stuff, right? So it's reintroducing the creative chaos, the creative
mm,
disorganizing, disordering that counts, right?
yeah.
And that's really kind of what NeuroOptimal does in the sense of it's just pointing you back instead of always doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, God, I don't have the energy. I don't want to go out this evening. What do you think is going to happen if you do?
Yeah.
If you weren't depressed, what would you do? Oh, I'd go out and hang with my best buds and we'd watch the game. Okay, so what about if you just do that? Try it, see what happens.
Yeah.
It's now that's all words, that's all in a talk
Sure.
context, right? But basically, Neuroptimal is saying, here you are now. What's the next? What's the next step? It's a Chinese expression that frequently gets mistranslated, and it's the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the phenomenon. No, the expression in Chinese is "ibu ibu lai." E is one or first. Bu is foot or step. Ibu, first step. Then Ibu, because wherever you are, it's always the first step from there.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing that, sooner or later, lai, which means arrive. So it's Ibu, 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 Ibu,
Yeah.
Ibu, right? And how far do you go? You'll never know until you get there.
Yeah. It's pretty. I'm just getting more jazzed up about finding a trainer to go check this thing out. Just to see, I'm visual, but I mean, just to experience, what'll come. I'm not going in with any preconceived. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, and that's
Sure.
totally cool. And I think that's great.
In fact, I would say that's an optimal way, if you will. That's a very good way to go.
Yeah.
I think sometimes folks come in because they sort of mishear the stories.
Mm-hmm.
They mishear what their friends have said. Oh, you've got to go try this thing, because, and then well, I'm sleeping better now, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, Johnny said I'd sleep better. Well, I don't know. We'll find out what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So
who lie?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Each person's going to have their own profound experience in one way or another.
Exactly. Exactly.
So Val, what are the best place, or what is the best place for someone to find out more?
The best place really is our website. So www.neuroptimal.com. And from there, if you're wanting to try the experience, particularly with a trainer, as opposed to going right to a rental or whatever, there's a find a trainer page item, and you can go there and it'll show you whoever's close to you. Now, if there isn't somebody close to you, there are various kinds of rental programs that a number of our trainers are engaged in, and they would, get a system to you and whatever their cost is for doing that. That's all referenced there too. Through the Find a Trainer, you'll see various people who have our certification, but also who offer rentals. And you can always also call NeuroOptimal, and we'll give you there's an 800 number, but it's also on the website.
Yep, everything's here.
Website. Everything is there, and our staff can kind of help you find somebody or give you options for research.
Great. Well, Val, this has been a very cool, fun,
good
conversation. I loved it. I hope our audience is loving it as much as I am right now. Because I think it's very powerful, coming from different worlds, and both of us, but being able to come together and like recognize it, like the power of the central nervous system is really an important thing. And that by helping it go back to its present time consciousness, to its balance, to its normal, is always a good thing.
Yes.
It may not maybe feel pleasant all the times, but it's always a good thing.
Yes.
Because reality is in the now.
Exactly. Yes.
So, well, I appreciate you. I cannot wait to, my next time out in Victoria, I'm gonna find
Definitely.
you. Find you. And
that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Have another conversation, I'm sure, at that point after my experience. And I appreciate you. And everybody, Val, we're gonna have all his details. The show notes will have everything in it. He's got a lot of cool videos, and I'll make sure we put some links to those videos in there, and his social media and so on and so forth. You know the details, everyone. You'll get all of that in the show notes. So Val, thank you again. Appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, thank you for inviting me, and I had a lot of fun too. I love it when we enjoy and we're just chatting, and it's fun. And you're right. I hope everybody gives it a shot at some point, and whatever happens, happens. But give yourself every brain deserves the chance. Let's put it that way.
That's right, everyone. Everyone's brain deserves a chance. All right, y'all. We'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
Hey everyone, I hope you absolutely loved that episode of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Dr. Val. How cool is NeuroOptimal? I haven't had a chance yet to give it a test. We are going to be doing it. I'm going to be bringing it possibly to my practice so we can test it out with our team. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this peak performance works with NeuroOptimal, because it's some powerful stuff, between me meditating and running and doing all sorts of different things, getting adjusted on a regular basis. This is another amazing way to help optimize, right? Optimize your central nervous system. Why would you not want that working in the right place at the right time, being present so you can function, perform, and heal the way you're supposed to? How cool would that be, right? So head over to neuroptimal.com and also head over to lifestylelocker.com/Val Brown. Again, that's lifestylelocker.com/Val Brown, so you can connect with NeuroOptimal in all of their places. All right, everyone, I do appreciate you. Have a fantastic day, evening, or night, wherever and whenever you're listening. And we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.